Hello everybody and welcome to my Decorative Quilter 2 block of the month. This is block 11 of 12, a shadow work block, and it was designed for you by Rita Gizzard and presented by myself, Mark Garretts. I'm a National Floriani educator. As I always like to do before we get into the details of the software and the construction, I like to show you a picture of what the finished block is going to look like so you can get an idea of where we're headed with this project. This is a shadow work block, and we've got some appliques on top of our normal block, and then over the top of it, to give it kind of a shadowy appearance, is a piece of either batiste or organza fabric. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the software portion of this block. So if you haven't done it already, come up here and click the new page icon to create a new page so you have a workspace, a nice clean new workspace. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our work area. So we're going to come up to our ruler, and throughout this lesson, if I tell you to just simply click, that means a left click. If I tell you to right click, that means to right click on your mouse. So I'm going to right click anywhere on the top ruler, just going to bring up my ruler and grid settings. Make sure you're in inches mode. Make sure show grid is checked. You want to make sure that snap to grid is checked, and when you do that, it's going to make that little box go away. So simply right click on the ruler one more time, come down here and click grid settings. Okay, and we want to change our horizontal and vertical spacing to 0.1. So whatever's in here, you want to type over it to 0.1 on both of them. So we're going to do 0.1. Then over here in our grid major, we want to set that to 24. So both of them get set to 24. Make sure that snap to anchors is not checked, and go ahead and click OK. And you can see when you do that, we've got a very, very tight grid, and that's because we're going to use that snap to grid feature to make it easier to place our points later on in the lesson. So the next thing we need to do is we need to load in our embellishment. Now, if you are using MDQII, this embellishment, this file, will be provided to you with the download of this lesson. So you're going to have to navigate to that folder, click File, Open. Actually, you want to come here and click File, Merge Stitch File. So you want to come up here and click File, Merge Stitch File, and you want to navigate to that folder, and you want to go ahead and open it. And it is called Flower 16D. Now, if you have Total Quilter like I do, then that embellishment is already built into the software. So you want to come here to your embellishments icon, and you want to click it, and then you want to scroll down to the bottom where it's located right here, Flower 16D. Go ahead and click it, and it's going to bring it in. It's going to kind of bring it into a random position, kind of small, but don't worry, we're going to fix that in a second so we can see it. Now, this embellishment consists of two different pieces. It consists of an outline, which is the purple, and this brand color, which is the actual stitches. We don't need the outline for this block, so we're going to select it in our sequence view, and we're going to delete it by coming up here to our cut icon and click it to delete it, and that's going to leave us with the stitches. The next thing we need to do is we need to rotate this to the left 45 degrees so it's straight up and down. So there's, again, two different ways of doing this. If you have My Decorative Quilter, you'll see two rotate icons. The one on the left is your rotate left 45 degrees. If you have Total Quilter like I do, you'll see four icons. You'll see a rotate 45 degrees and a rotate 90 degree left. So you want the 45 degree one. So go ahead and click that once. And then we're going to come over to our Properties box over here, switch to our Transform tab. You want to make sure that Maintain Aspect Ratio is checked and that you're in inches. And then what we want to do is in the width, we want to change this to 2. And the height will automatically change because we have Maintain Aspect Ratio checked. And go ahead and click Apply. Now, sometimes this won't actually change to 2. It's going to change to 2.13. What you want to do if that happens is you want to backspace over it, select 2 again, and click Apply. And the second time it will lock it into exactly 2 inches high, which is what we want. Now what you want to do is you want to drag this flower over to right here. So you want it at basically not 0 on the vertical, but you want 0 on the horizontal. I'm sorry, I misstated that. You want to have it vertical on 0 on the. So the next thing you want to do is you want to drag this over to the center of the screen, and you want to put the tip on your first major grid line above 0, and you want to center it horizontally on the center or 0 grid line, just like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to double click our magnifying glass, which is a shortcut for zoom to fit. And you can see at this tighter magnification, I didn't quite get it on the line. So we are going to use our shortcut keys for nudging this design into position. To do that, you want to hold down the control key on your keyboard, and when you do that, your arrow keys turn into a nudge control, which allows you to nudge the design around in very, very small, precise increments. So you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm pressing control, and then I'm going to press my left arrow key once, twice, 3 times, and this will vary again. I did it one time too many. Let me come back one. That looks just about perfect. So we're all lined up now vertically, and our tip is right and nice on this major grid line up here. When you get that locked in, you're all good to go. So what we're going to do now is click anywhere on the screen to deselect the flower, and we are going to now add some colors to our design palette, so it makes it easy to continue to select the same colors in our design. So we're going to do that by first selecting a palette that doesn't have very many colors in it, which is going to make it easy for us to do. And that is the Floriani Cotton Thread Palette. So you're going to come down here to this icon, which is your Select Thread Chart icon, click it, and select Floriani Cotton. When you do that, you'll see that your palette has a very limited range here because there's only 15 colors in that color set. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add some of these colors temporarily to this design color palette. And the way we do that is we find the first color we want to add, which is going to be this kind of a cotton ecru color here. And we're going to right click on it, and a little box is going to pop up that says Add to Design Palette. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And we next want to add this black here. So I'm going to right click on that and add that one. I'm going to come here to this navy, right click, and add that to the design palette. I'm going to do the next color, which is this reddish color here. I'm going to right click on that and add that to the design palette. I'm going to skip all the way over here to this pink. I'm going to right click and say add that to the design palette. And finally, I'm going to add this kind of a greenish turquoise color here and click Add to Design Palette. So now I should have my design palette looking like this. And the only one that's going to have a number in it is this first one, the brand color, and that's because it's the only one that's assigned to some thread right now. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take this design, which is thread right now, and we are actually going to recreate it, as crazy as that sounds. But the reason that we're going to do that is because this design was designed to be stitched out all as one contiguous piece. In this particular design, we're going to turn this into a set of applique stitches, and so we don't want it to stitch out contiguously because they're going to be separate colors here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to redigitize these pieces independently instead of together. Now don't panic, this is actually easier than it sounds. To do that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up and we're going to click our run stitch icon here to start creating run stitches, and then we're going to select a color to work with, and we're going to come down here to our first dark color in our design palette, which is our Floriani Black 900, and I'm going to click that, and that's going to make sure that everything that we draw now is going to be in that black color. Now, to digitize this with the Run Stitch tool, we're going to actually start tracing around this upper design first. And most of the clicking that we're going to do is going to be what we call control clicks, meaning that instead of just simply left clicking, I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard and then left click at the same time. What that does is it inputs a curved point instead of a straight point. If I don't hold down Control, it puts in a straight point. So I'm going to start up here and we're going to kind of move down along here. And as I click, you'll notice that where I'm pointing is not where the cursor or where the point is going to end up, because it's going to snap to our grid. And remember, we have snap to grid turned on, so that's why that's going to happen. So if I click, say, down here, it's going to snap up here. So right here, I'm right kind of at the intersection, so that's good. So I'm going to start digitizing now. I'm going to hold down my Control button, and I'm going to click on my mouse. Then I'm going to come down to this area right here, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to come down to this area and click, and you can see it's not exactly following the line, but that's actually okay. And then I'm going to do my last Control click for this particular segment right here, and then I am going to now just do a regular left click. So I've let off Control right here, and I'm going to do another regular click right up here. So I'm going to do that one, and then I'm going to hold down Control to complete this, and I'm going to come up to this intersection right here, and I'm going to then click up at the top, and now I'm again going to do a regular click. So I've got Control unheld, and I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to do Control for the rest of them. So I am going to come down here, or I shouldn't say I'm going to do the rest of them, that's actually wrong. But I'm going to do Control for this one, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to do Control for this one. And then what I'm going to do is not do Control for this one, and then I'm going to come right here and not do Control for this one, and then I'm going to hold down Control again and come up here and do this one, and I'm going to keep holding down Control and come back to where I started and do that point. And you can see that we've created a design. It doesn't exactly match what we had in stitches, but that's okay, because we're going to actually, when we're done, delete those stitches. No one will ever see that they didn't match. To complete our input, what you want to do now is you want to right click to end it. And what we're going to do now is we are going to digitize the next piece in our design. So that is going to be this piece right in here. And what we want to do is we're going to start up here, and we're going to come down around this way and around. And again, we are going to start with a Control click, and we're going to start actually right up in here. So we are going to hold down Control and click right there, and we're going to come down just to where this matches right here, and we are going to Control click, and we're going to come here to where this kind of matches. Now we have a choice here. We can select down here, so I'm going to select right over here, and I'm going to go ahead and do another point right here where it crosses, and then what I'm going to finally do is another one down here, and then we're going to come back up to the opposite of this point, and this one is going to be a regular left click. So you want to do a regular left click. Then I'm going to hold down Control one more time for the rest of my clicks. So I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to come here. You can see how I'm kind of symmetrically following this. And when I'm done with that one, I'm going to right click to lock it in. And we're going to go ahead and do that for this leaf over here. All right. And so what we're going to do is start down here at the bottom, and I have a choice. I can either start out here, or I can start in the center here, and I'm going to choose to start out here. I just think this looks a little bit better when we stitch it out. So again, I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to come up here to the first place that we have a cross, which is right here, and click that. And I'm going to come out here again to fairly close. I don't know, let's do this one here where we've got a nice crossing point. And lastly, we're going to come out here, and we are going to Control click out here. So those have all been Control clicks. Now what we're going to do is come down to this point right here, and this is going to be a regular left click. So I'm going to click right there, and then we're going to do some more controls. So I'm going to come down to this point right here where it crosses nice, and I am going to hold down Control and click, and then I'm going to come all the way back down here to my beginning point with another Control click, and now I'm going to right click to lock that particular piece of stitching into place. And what's happened now is that we are going to click on the plus right here to expand this run, and we are going to click on the last leaf run here. So I've got just this last run stitch selected, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of it. So what I'm going to do is come up here and click copy, and then I'm going to click paste, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it to create the leaf over here. So I'm going to flip it horizontal with my flip horizontal icon, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this into place, and where I want this is kind of symmetrical to the other one. So I kind of want it by my grid lines lined up just kind of like that right there. Going to just nudge it into position. Okay, that looks pretty good. And so what we've got now is we've got our brand new set of stitches, and we want to come back over to our sequence view and click the first item, which is our original set of stitches, and we're going to delete those. So you want to come up here to our cut icon and click it, and that's going to leave just a nice set of stitches, and our original set of stitches is going to be gone. What we're going to do next is we're going to change our grid settings to make the next section easier to work with. So we're going to come up to our ruler bar anywhere on our top ruler, and we're going to right click on it, and we are going to turn off snap to grid. We are going to come back and click grid settings, and now what we want to do is we want to set our horizontal and our vertical grid spacing to 2.4. So I'm going to put 2.4 in both of those. So 2.4. And we want our major grid spacing to be 1. So I'm going to put 1 and 1, and we're going to click OK. And that's going to lock that in. What we're going to do now is we're going to zoom out. And we're going to do that by coming up here to our numerical zoom drop down, and we're going to click the down arrow, and we're going to go to 100%. And that is going to, depending on your screen, maybe make it a little bit too big, maybe not. But the idea is you want to be able to see each of these squares here. So I've got a nice big screen here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in so that you can see this a little bit better. Now you may or may not have to do this at home, but I'm going to come and take my magnifying glass, and I am going to zoom in on this quadrant of squares right here. So I've got the 4 squares in the center. So I've got 0, 0, and I've got my zoom mode still on. So I need to come back here and re-click my select tool to get out of zoom mode. If you don't do that, things are not going to work very well. So what I want to do is come over to my sequence view, and I'm going to click on all items to select everything. And what I need to do now is I need to make sure that these are all going to stitch together. So just to make sure of that, I am going to come over to my first color right here, and I am going to click on that color just to make sure that these are all the same color. Now what I want to do is make sure that this is in the right place, and you can see that it already is in the right place because I dragged it there to begin with into the right place. Now if you need to, you want to get it right here, because what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it around, and we're going to use these grid lines to line up the rest of our pieces. Okay, and if you can't see all of this, you might want to zoom or pan around so you get everything on there. With everything selected, we're going to come up here to our copy icon and click it, and click paste to create a copy. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. Now again, if you have my decorative quilter, you're only going to see the 45-degree rotate icon, so you want to click that twice. The 45-degree right icon, you want to click it twice. If you have total quilter, you can click on the 90-degree simply once. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drag this over, and what you want is the tip to be here. Okay, so if you get the tip here, everything else will line up. Now, when you drag it, it's important that the cursor looks like that hand. If the cursor still looks like a pointer and you click, you're going to deselect it. That's going to create problems. So the easiest way to do that is put it right over the center, click and drag it into position to where you are able to get that point right on the point right there. And when you let off, and you can see as I let off, it zipped out just a little bit. So I'm going to again use my control nudge feature. So I'm holding down control and I'm going to nudge that back into position right there. That's perfect. Okay, you can see that those leaves touch right there. That's okay. That's what we want. And now what we're going to do is we are going to come and select everything. So we are going to come up to all items again, select it, and we're going to again copy and paste. So now we've got another whole set. It's right on top of it. And so what we need to do now is rotate these 90 degrees, excuse me, not 90, but 180. So if you have my decorative quilter, that's going to be 4 45-degree rotate rights, or 2 90s if you have total quilter. So let's do the 4 45. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And then again, we're going to drag this one into position. And again, we're going to line up our 2 points with our grid lines. Okay, so I'm going to just get those lined up nice, just over a little bit. Perfect right there. Okay, and that is close enough. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come over to our sequence view and create a set of tack down stitches. So what we're going to do is select all items again. And what we're going to do is make yet another copy of this whole thing. So I'm going to click copy and paste. But before we do anything else, we're going to assign a new color to the second set of run stitches. So we're going to come over here to our second dark color, which is this navy, and we're going to click that, and that's going to actually create a new item in our sequence view. And from now on, what we're going to do is we are going to work in a expanded sequence view because we're going to do a lot of work in the sequence view. So to do that, we're actually going to temporarily get rid of this properties box so that our sequence view is a lot bigger. So to do that, you're going to come up here to this little properties box X right here up in the corner, and you're going to click it, and that's going to make it go away. Now don't worry, we will bring it back. All right, but that is going to make our sequence view a lot larger so it's easier to work with. What you want to do now is scroll up to the very top, and both of these items are expanded, and what we want to do is collapse the top one, and we do that by clicking this little minus sign right here. So you're going to go ahead and click that minus sign, and that's going to make this one get small so that we can see all the pieces down here to work with. So we want to click on the first item, which is this one right here, and we don't want that to actually be black. We want that to be a light color. So we're going to come here to this ecru, which is our first light color in our design color, and we're going to click that, and it's going to change it to that color. You can see how that changes it. And next what we want to do is we want to, and by the way, that created the placement stitch for all the items. So that's going to be our placement stitch. What we want to do now is we want to click on the fifth run in the second item. So it's this is the piece right here. We want to find the one that goes to the right. So that's this fifth one right here. And then we're going to hold down our control key and we're going to select the other ones. I'm not going to count. I'm just going to let you select those items just like you see here. All right, so we want all of those, and we want them all together with this one. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to drag them up below the first run. And the way we do that is we click and drag them in the sequence view. To get them to go below the first item, we're going to actually drag it on top of it. And when we let off, they're going to fall in right below it. So what we need to do now is we need to select the second item and the fourth item, and we're going to change their color. And we're going to come down here and click on the second dark color, which is the black, and we're going to select that, and that's actually going to make the machine stop for us in between the pieces. So it's going to sew one, stop, and then continue on, which is what we want to happen. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down to this last item, which is the 6th item here, and we are going to click on the 4th item, which is this petal that faces to the right. So it's this one right here, and we're going to hold down our control key and we're going to select the other 2. So we've got those 3, not the first one, but those 3 selected that you see right here. And again, we're going to click and drag them on top of the first run that looks like it to get these to all stitch in the same order. And then what we're going to do once again is we're going to select the second one and hold down control and select the 4th one. And we're going to change those colors again to color number 3 here, the second dark color. And that's going to again create the stops that we want for us. So the final piece of fabric, this one, will be just a single piece. So this can all be together. It doesn't need stops in it. All right, so that's okay to leave just like that. All right, so we are going to now right click anywhere in the sequence view and select collapse all, and that's a shortcut for getting everything all nice and collapsed. And what we need to do now is we need to add some colors to this. So we're going to first of all going to hide the first item, and we're going to do that by clicking this little eyeball right here on the very, very first item. When we hide it, that hides it from our view, but it also hides it so that we won't accidentally select it when we do a click all items. So if I click all items, it is actually not going to select this one, but it's going to select all of these so that we can work with those all at once. So we're going to need to make a copy of everything. So we're going to come again up to our copy icon and click it, and we're going to then go ahead and click paste. And then what we want to do is we want to scroll all the way down to the bottom of our sequence view. And what we're going to do is we are actually going to select the first flower piece that we see right here that's expanded, and then we're going to select these pieces right here. Now these were intentionally different colors because that's the way we wanted them when we did our tack downs, but we don't want them that way for the final stitching. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this first one, and then we're going to hold down control and click on the next 3, and then we're going to assign them to a new color. And what that's going to do is make them all stitch without a stop. And we're going to use this red color here, which is the only red color. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and that's going to make them all a single thread color, which is what we want. And next what we're going to do is come down to the center pieces of the flower, which is right here. Click on the first one, and then we're going to hold down our control key and click on the next 3. So we've got all the center flower pieces. We want to make them a separate color, so we're going to come to our pink color here in our design palette and click that, and that's going to put some pink thread there. And lastly, what we want to do is select this last item here, which is the navy, and we're going to use the green to assign to that. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and that is going to assign it. Now it looks a little greenish to me, but you can see it actually says it's slate blue. The actual color really doesn't matter. What we're going to do now is we're going to right click on our sequence view, and we are going to select collapse all so that we can see everything all nice and collapsed. Then what we want to do next is we want to restore our properties box. So I'm going to come over here to my properties box, and I'm going to click it, and that's this icon right here. So this is going to bring my properties box back. So you see how nice it brought that back. We're going to come here, and we are going to click all items, and again, because this is hidden, we're not going to select those, we're just going to select these, and we're going to change these from regular single run stitches to bean stitches. So I'm going to do this all at once. I'm going to select the down arrow, select bean in my properties, and I'm going to leave my bean repeats at 3, but I want my stitch length to be 2.5 millimeters to make it a little tighter. So I'm going to type in 2.5 and click apply. And what we're going to do next is we are going to unhide this item. So we're going to do that by clicking on the little grayed out eye. So now everything is visible. And the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our original block design in to add the rest of the stitching to this shadow work block. And that's the block we created way back in November of 2015, which is our first lesson. Before we do that, we want to check to make sure that the center of this design is on 0, 0 right here. If it's not, what you want to do is you want to click all items, and you want to come up here to this alignment icon, click it, and you want to click the last one, next to last one on the right, which is center to rulers, and click it, and it will center that design on the rulers. And you can see how it centered that just a little bit, tiny bit for me, but it's nice and perfectly centered now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to load in our original block, like I said. So to do that, you want to come up to File and click Merge Stitch File, and you want to navigate to your November 2015 folder. You want to find the basic block for BOM.WAF. Make sure you load the WAF version. Select it, click Open, and that's going to bring in that block. And when it does it, you can see it brought it in a place where it wasn't on top of this one, but we actually want it centered. So what we want to do is come down here and click anywhere on it, and since it comes in grouped, you click anywhere and it's going to select the whole thing, so that's pretty easy. And what you want to do now is repeat what we just did if necessary. Come here and click the alignment, click center to rulers, and it's going to align it nice for us. And what we want to do now is double click our zoom tool so that we can see the whole block nice and big on the screen. So what we're going to do now is we just need to reorganize the sequence view just a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to come to our block, which just got loaded, which is everything that's selected down here. And you can see the first two items are a light blue outline and then this diamond. What you want to do is click on the blue outline, hold down Control, and click on that to select both of those. And these are our placement lines and tack downs for our batting and first pieces of fabric, so we want those to go first in our sequence. So what we're going to do is right click on them, and we're going to select Move, and from the Move menu we want to click First, and that's going to actually automatically move them first for us. And that completes the design of this block. All we need to do now is save it. So you're going to come up here to the Save icon and click it, or you can come up and click File, Save As, but I'm going to go ahead and click the Save icon. And what you want to do is not save it here in November 2015. What you want to do is navigate, and I'm going to use my up one level here to go up 2 levels. I'm going to find my September folder, and if you downloaded this project, which you should have, you will have the September 2016 folder, and you want to double click that to open it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as Shadow Work Block 11 of 12, and I'm going to leave it in the WAF format and click Save. You always want to get in the habit of saving your WAF files, and then what you want to do in order to stitch it out is you need to save it one more time. This time what I want to do is click File and then click Save As, and this time I want to change my format to my machine format. So if I had a Janome or an Elna, I might want the Jeff format, so I'm going to select that and click Save, and that is going to save it in my machine format. Now all I need to do is put that on a stick and take it over to my machine. So that ends the software portion of this webinar, and we're going to continue on now with the construction details. So let's go over the materials that are required for this month's block. You're going to need some Floriani Quilted Soft Bamboo Cotton Blend batting or Floriani Embroidery batting, your choice. You're going to need some Floriani Nylon No-Show Mesh Stabilizer. You want the non-fusible. You want some embroidery and bobbin thread. For the top thread, you want to choose colors that work well with your fabric choices. Now in this design, we have used cotton thread in the actual file, but you can use cotton thread in the machine or polyester thread. It's your choice. You also are going to need some R&K embroidery perfection tape, that's the pink tape, and you'll need a minimum 6" by 6" or 150mm by 150mm hoop size. For the fabric for this month's block, you're going to need some batting. You're going to need 4 5.5" squares of that. For fabric A, you're going to need 4 4 3/8" squares for the centerpiece. Fabric B is going to be 4 4" squares cut in half diagonally for one set of corners, so that's 8 pieces. And fabric C is exactly the same, just a different color. For your first applique fabric, you're going to need 16 1.5" squares. For the second applique fabric, you're going to need 16 1" by 1.5" rectangles. And for the third applique fabric, you're going to need 4 4" squares. And lastly, for our shadow fabric, you're going to need 4 5" squares of either batiste or organza fabric. These quantities make 4 blocks, but for the complete project fabric list, you want to see the info guide that was included with the November 2015 download. Before we start stitching, some important notes are that some of the color changes in this design are there simply to make the machine stop between the steps, so you can put your applique fabric down, trim it, etc. You have the option of leaving the same thread in, or you can change it. If you have a multi-needle machine, though, you're going to want to use the machine controls to insert those reserve stop commands to make the machine stop between colors. Otherwise, it's going to just continue to stitch right onto the next color, and you won't be able to put your applique fabric down or trim it. So to start embroidering, you want to load the Shadow Work Block 11 of 12 design into your machine. Hoop up a piece of Floriani nylon no-show mesh stabilizer, get it nice and tight. Attach the hoop to the machine and stitch out the first color, which will be the placement line for our batting. Next, you want to place the square of batting within the placement lines and secure the corners with the embroidery perfection tape. And go ahead and stitch the next color, which will be the placement lines for our first piece of fabric. When your machine stops, put fabric A in the center, right side up, so that it covers the placement lines. Back your machine up to stitch that placement line one more time to tack down the fabric. Stitch the next color, which is going to stitch all the placement lines for all the applique pieces. Place the first set of applique fabrics as shown so that they cover the placement lines. Stitch the tack down stitches for all 4 appliques. Now they're going to stitch in clockwise order, and they'll stop between each set, which allows you to reposition the fabric if necessary. Take the hoop out of the machine and trim the fabric close to the stitching. Now these are actually going to end up looking like raw edge appliques. So there's no wide covering stitch over the edges, so precision here is kind of important. Place the second set of applique fabrics as shown here, and then go ahead and stitch their tack down stitches. The machine will stop between the steps as before, allowing you to reposition the fabric. Again, you want to trim close to the stitching, again remembering that precision is important. Place the third and final piece of applique fabric as shown here, and then stitch its tack down stitches. Again, trim close to the stitching. Place the shadow fabric, that's your batiste or organza, over the design so that it matches the base fabric, and then restitch the second placement line, which was your fabric A placement way back at the beginning, to secure the shadow fabric. So you might have to back your machine up all the way back to that second step. Remember to move your machine forward back to the current step before continuing on to the next one. Now change your top thread to a color that will go with the first applique, and go ahead and stitch that color out to top stitch that applique into position. And then go ahead and repeat this for the next 2 appliques. So you've changed your thread 3 times and sewn down the 3 sets of appliques. Now place your fabric B triangles along the placement lines, right sides down on the center of the fabric, and go ahead and stitch the next 2 colors to tack down those triangles. Press open the 2 corner triangles. Then place your fabric C triangles along the placement lines, right sides down on the center of the fabric, and go ahead and stitch the next 2 colors to tack down those triangles. Press open the last 2 triangles, then remove all of the tape and change the top thread to the color intended for quilting if necessary. Stitch the next color, which will stitch the quilting stitches, and then the next color for the guidelines. Then you want to trim the block to 6 inches square, and the best way to do that is with a clear ruler, and the 6-inch square Quilter Select ruler is great for that. And then you want to repeat this whole procedure to make a total of 4 blocks. So that completes this project, Block 11, our shadow work block. We want to thank everybody for attending. We hope you'll use this video along with the printed PDF instructions to create the project at home. We invite you to come back next month for the next installment of the series. That'll be our last block. And don't forget to post your blocks on the Floriani Embroidery Facebook page, because we're going to have a contest at the end for the best looking blocks and the best looking quilt. So we'll see you next month, and thanks again for attending.